Doctors, do you struggle trying to give patients great care and managing a busy practice at the same time? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast, brought to you by CATS Consultants and Chiro Health USA. I'm Dr. Michael Perusich. I'm your host, and I'm joined with my guest host, Dr. Kelly Fredricks. Kelly, this is something we both know a little bit about.
A little bit, yes.
Great patient care, but at the same time, we know that going on behind us is this whirlwind of a busy practice that requires business management. How do we manage it?
Very carefully. It's funny that we're talking about this today because I literally just finished my morning shift and I had two people in my adjusting room. I had two people waiting, and all of a sudden, here comes my assistant. She says, "The cleaning company is here to talk to you." And I'm like, great timing, right? Like, how am I supposed to do this? And I'm like, "Hey, go get Christy." Christy's my office manager. Let Christy talk to her. Christy had just left to go to the bank. So Christy here to talk to them. And I really needed to talk to them. So thankfully, my sweet patient, she says, "I'm okay. I can sit here for a little bit. Why don't you go talk to them?" So I went.
Yeah, but it's always a constant juggle, though. There's always something happening like that, whether it's a behind the scenes emergency, an accountant calls and you got to talk to him real quick, or the radiologist,
Yes.
or, some vendor walks in and needs your attention for a couple of minutes.
Yes.
And one of the ways that I found success in managing those kind of things was, and you kind of just hit on this a little bit, is making sure I had people I could delegate to.
100%. Yes. Yeah. You want to make sure you have that point person. So whether that's your CA or your office manager or whoever is in that day, you want to make sure you have that point person. So that way, when the salespeople come in the door or when those phone calls come, it goes to that person first instead of them needing to come to you while you're adjusting somebody.
Right. So that delegation is hugely important.
Yeah.
Part of delegation is giving people the authority to say, "Hey, cleaning people, Dr. Fredricks is busy right now with patients," which takes priority.
Yeah.
And so have a seat, or how can I help you? Or can you come back at a better time when she might not be as busy? And just giving your staff that authority to say those kind of things and help manage things behind the scenes for you.
Absolutely. And I think also keeping them abreast too at what's happening, the staff. So for example, in the huddle in the morning, if we're waiting for a phone call from somebody, or we have something that we're working on, making sure that the whole staff knows, "Hey, we're waiting on a phone call from the banker," or "I'm expecting somebody to come in from here." So that way they are as prepared as possible, and know how to handle those situations instead of being blindsided and not knowing what to do.
Right. And you'd hate to be waiting on a call from a radiologist about a patient's x-rays at 9 a.m. and then you get done at 5:30 and your staff says, "Oh yeah, the radiologist called about 9:15. Did you need to talk to him?" And, in their mind, because they didn't know they were calling, they're going to take a message and tell you later. So you have to make sure that you keep your staff plugged into what could be important that you need to lay eyes or ears on at some point during the day. So we got to take a quick break, but we're talking about the struggle, and it really is kind of a struggle sometimes, of managing a busy practice, taking great care of your patients, and still making sure that the business whirlwind is running behind the scenes. So we'll continue our discussion. We'll be right back.
In today's economy, every dollar counts. Families are facing tough choices, having to reconsider what was once essential to them. But when it comes to healthcare, no one should have to compromise on their well-being because of financial constraints. That's where Chiro Health USA steps in, the solution for your practice. We understand the financial pressures families are under, whether they're insured, on Medicare, or paying out of pocket for treatment. By offering discounts on care, you can ensure that your patients can still afford the treatment they need. At Chiro Health USA, we're committed to making sure no family has to sacrifice their health due to financial hardship. We'll work with you to create a game plan that keeps your waiting room full and your practice thriving. And here's the best part. Offering affordable care not only benefits your patients, but also positively impacts your bottom line. So why wait? Join Chiro Health USA today and join the ranks of the most successful practices. Because when you put your patients first, everyone wins.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast. We are talking about the struggle of managing that busy practice and trying to see patients at the same time. And, this is one of those things where the struggle is real,
It is.
absolutely real. And docs out there with busy practices, you know what we're talking about here. And so you have to find this balance between making sure that the business behind the scenes is being run properly while you're still able to deliver patient care. And the risk is always that something's going to fall through the cracks. Either you're going to neglect patients for a minute or two or too long, or, something you really needed to take care of or really needed to happen behind the scenes didn't get taken care of. So, you know, part of that is, and we talked about this already, part of that is delegating some of those duties to our staff.
Yeah. Yes.
Part of it, I think, is just planning ahead too.
Yes. I was just going to say that planning ahead and communicating are really the biggest key factors, and making sure that they know what's important. So getting back to what you were just saying with that phone call, normally we tell our staff, we're not taking phone calls during patient care, or if it's salesperson, push them off. So communicating what is important and anticipating what could be happening is key too. So planning out for something. For example, I have another example today. We are having a doula speed dating in our office on Saturday. So we have been talking about this all week because we have things that we need to be preparing for while patients are here on the off times, to get ready for this event. So, but also we've got people walking in the door because the doulas are coming. They need to assess the space. They're going to be planning for these things as well. But this is something that we had on the books and on the calendar for a while. So
Right.
that we've been anticipating, but then also as things happen, we realize, oh my gosh, we forgot this or we forgot this. So I had to send my office manager out to Dollar Tree to pick up a couple things for a raffle basket that came up this week that we decided we wanted to do. So we do our best. We plan for what is to come. And then you just know that things are going to happen. Things are going to pop up here and there. And then you just delegate.
And you delegate. And, things do pop up, but sometimes there are emergencies. I can tell you a great story about a patient that I had in my practice one time that she walked in the front door. She went to the front desk to check in, and she turned to pivot to go sit down, and her femur shattered
Oh my
right
goodness.
there in the lobby. And, so talk about planning. Had we planned for that specific incident? No, but we did have contingency plans in place that we practiced and rehearsed
Yeah.
in case something did happen. And so I'm not out there. Obviously, I'm back taking care of patients, but my team is managing this issue as somebody's coming to get me to come up front and help out with the situation. So, I think part of this, managing this struggle, if you will,
Mhm.
is planning ahead. And it's trying to plan as much contingency into things as you can.
Yeah. Running through scenarios, right? Like as a group, discussing what are potential things that could happen, and things will happen that you're not expecting. And then once that does happen, you better believe our next staff meeting, we're having that discussion. Okay, this is what happened. What should we have done differently? Is there a new procedure that we need to be putting into place so that way we are prepared for when it happens again, or if it ever does happen again?
Sure, sure. And part of management of your business is sometimes things like patient flow. And so as the doctor, you're busy, you're head down with patients all day long. Who's managing that patient flow? What if you get off track during the day? You've got an emergency patient that comes in, and now your patient flow is getting backed up. Who's managing that? Who has that authority to manage it? And when you get done at the end of the day, are you discussing what happened? How could we have done it better?
Yep, exactly. We call that person the hostess. So, or
Right.
host, so we choose, okay, who is up for this shift, and we discuss that in the huddles. Who's the host? Who's the hostess for the shift? Who's running the flow? Who's making sure things are moving? Who's making sure that people are in the right rooms when they need to be? And if something happens, who is that point person?
Right, right. And I think too, having staff help manage things is incredibly important. So, what is your staff doing, doctors? What is your staff doing to help you really manage? So For example, we've all have built-in times of the day where we're not seeing patients. Let's take lunchtime, for example.
Mhm.
Now, are we not busy during that time? No, of course we're busy. We've got notes to catch up on and phone
Yeah.
calls to do and blah, blah, blah. Staff meetings probably from time to time to have and so forth. But I know when I would come off the patient floor and was getting ready for that downtime during the lunch hour, Marissa would hand me a piece of paper that outlined everything I needed to get done, phone calls I needed to return, meetings I needed to be in, notes I needed to do, whatever it might be. She would hand me a list. So what was great about that was it helped keep me on time and using my time wisely and effectively.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's hard when you come off shift, you've been in a whirlwind, right? So you kind of,
Right.
whoa, I need to decompress a little bit. And that can take a little bit of time. And then you
Yeah.
find out that all of a sudden you just wasted 10, 15, 20 minutes and you could have been getting a couple things accomplished. So I think that's such a great idea that you're shifting right into that downtime and knowing what it is that you're moving into next.
Yeah.
You can be
Yeah.
productive.
So, yeah, well, and that's true. You do. We use that word a lot around here. You have to be intentional. And part of that intention is knowing that you as the doctor in a busy patient load practice are not going to be able to do everything.
Right.
So we have to have success partners behind us, office managers, great front desk people. All these cogs need to be in place. And so how do we build those people? Well, it's team development. And we got to take another break, but I want to come back and I want to spend a little bit of time on that topic and how it helps us with the struggle of seeing a high patient load and still trying to manage a successful business. So hang in there, everybody. We'll be right back. All right.
Pat's Chiropractic Consultants, your partner in chiropractic success. We are dedicated with one-on-one guidance to bring you all your practice management needs. Let's supercharge your practice. Give us a call today.
And everybody, welcome back to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast. Today, we're tackling the tightrope that all of us deal with in our practices. And that tightrope is managing a good patient load and managing the practice all at the same time. And Kelly, we just started to dive into this topic of the importance of team development and how that helps us manage both ends of the practice.
Yeah, definitely. Team development is key. So making sure that you have time in your months, in your quarter, where you're meeting with your team and you're discussing goals. You're discussing, what's silly around here. That's a big thing that we use often.
Yep.
So
Always did that too.
yeah. So that way, as a team, you can come together and then you can figure out what needs to be done and who is the best person to handle that particular task. And that is the key point in team development, because if you have a person that is an introvert and all of a sudden you're trying to have them help you with some events or some marketing or talking to patients at the front desk, that's probably not the best person to be developing in that role. But if you've got somebody that's an extrovert and they like to do those things, that's the person that you want to develop into that role. So you need to really dive deep into who you have and what their strengths are. So that way you can build a position for them around what needs to be done.
Yeah. And I think as the practice grows too, you have to redevelop and reshift some duties sometimes. So, part of what's silly around here is, okay, let's all define who's doing what.
Yeah.
Even though we may think we know, it's always surprising to write it down on paper and see where we imbalanced a little bit and how can we shift things around to spread the load back out, because it has a tendency to accumulate towards your more impact players sometimes.
Yeah.
And so we have to make sure that we redistribute so that we keep the team fresh and congruent,
Yeah.
as well as cross-trained.
Yes, absolutely. Well, because that's so true. It's very easy to pick your go-tos, right? To load them
Sure.
up with your tasks because you know that they can handle that. But then you may have a newer CA that wants to grow and they want to contribute and they want a chance. Put me in, coach, right? So
Right.
so writing them out on a big whiteboard or whatever it is that you guys are working on, and you can see who's handling all the load. And a lot of times the staff, they'll be overloaded and they won't tell you. And we don't think about it because we're just like, we're trying to get to the next thing, right? So we're just like, you do this, you do this, you do that. And then all of a sudden they're overloaded and then they're starting to get a little upset and then they're starting to get worked out when we set it all out and realize we need to shift some of this to this other person, to this new person and make it more congruent, then everybody's happy.
Right. Exactly. So doctors, if you're listening out there and you've got a busy practice, which I'm sure most of you do, you've got that busy practice and you're trying to manage the entire thing by yourself. I'm telling you right now, you can't do it effectively. You are great at patient care. You're great at managing patient cases. You're probably great at running the business side of the practice too, but you can't do it alone. So we have to develop our success partners in the practice. And this is also where sometimes coaching and mentoring can really help you as well, to help kind of be the sounding board or the board of directors, so to speak, just to help provide some oversight. And how can we manage this thing better and more efficiently and ultimately more profitably?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you just need that extra voice to push you along and to guide you along and be like, It's time. It's time for you to hire somebody else, or it's time for you to allow yourself to delegate that off. So that
Yeah.
way you as a doctor can continue to grow.
I think yeah, exactly. I think one of the problems of being an entrepreneur, owning your own business, is we have a tendency to push ourselves to the top of the food chain. And that actually is a little dangerous because we lose accountability when we do that. So it's always good to have that extra set of eyes looking down on you and making sure you're not only holding yourself accountable, but you've got somebody truly holding your feet to the fire so that you're
Yeah.
constantly pushing yourself. Michael Jordan always said he'd have never been the success he was had he not had multiple types of coaches. I think if I remember his story right, it was like 9 coaches or something that he had.
Yeah.
So even the great ones need a coach. So
100%.
100%. So go check us out at katzconsultants.com. See all the great things that we're doing to help our clients and help the profession develop not only practices that are busy and seeing lots and lots of people and taking lots of great care of all those great spines out there, but also managing their practice so it's profitable and fun and not just pushing you under and burning you out.
Yes. Not just the grind. We got to have a good time.
Right. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today to the KC CHIROpulse Podcast. On behalf of all of us here at Katz Consultants and Chiro Health USA, we thank everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.